Welcome to a fresh hour of CBS Sports HQ. Happy New Year. Alongside the two-headed monster, former Ohio State running back Beanie Wells and former Louisiana running back Emory Hunt, I am Hakeem Dermish. We've got chaos in the college football playoff. The 10-seed Miami takes down the defending national champs. Are you kidding me? Miami jumped out to a 14-0 lead when Keontae Scott picked off Julian Sayin, returned it 72 yards for a touchdown. The 14-point deficit for Ohio State was their largest deficit in 3 years. Buckeyes scored on their first possession of the second half, then cut the deficit to 3 when Sayin tossed a 14-yard touchdown to Jeremiah Smith in the fourth quarter. But with less than 2 minutes to go and clinging to the 3-point lead, Miami sealed it on a third-down conversion when Carson Beck completed a 13-yard pass to C.J. Daniels. Then 2 plays later, Shamar Brown capped it with a 5-yard touchdown run, and Miami upsets the defending national champs 24-14, advancing to the Fiesta Bowl. Julian Sayin was sacked 5 times against Indiana in the Big Ten Championship. He was sacked 5 more times against Miami in the Cotton Bowl. Consider this, Sayin was sacked only 6 times the entire regular season. So in their quest to repeat, Ohio State is one and done. All right, back here with Beanie Wells and Emory Hunt. And look, I guess it's appropriate you guys wore black suits because it's a funeral for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Look, this is tough for me. We're both from Northeast Ohio. I did not expect Ohio State to be one and done, to lose their first game to Miami. Beanie, your reaction is what?
It was shocking. You know, it was shocking the way Ohio State started this football game out the gate. In the words of Sam Darnold, for Julian Sayin, I was seeing ghosts. He was seeing ghosts out there all night long, and it was because of the presence that Miami started the game with, being physical in the trenches. We knew that was going to be a deciding factor in this football game, but the way they got after him, the way they disguised blitz, the way they had him confused all night long led to the outcome being the way that it was and with the Miami Hurricanes winning. And then coupled with the way that they were able to run the football, this was an uncharacteristic game for Ohio State. Hats off to Miami, because at the beginning of the year, even down the stretch when the committee was talking about teams that should get in and shouldn't get in, I was on board with Miami not getting in because they didn't take care of business and they lost to lesser opponents. They look like now they can go out and legitimately win a national championship the way they played in this football game.
But totally agree with you 1,000%. We talked in the pregame about who has the edge in terms of the trenches, and we both said Miami.
Yep.
And it was Miami on both sides of the ball. Offensively, we saw that help out Mark Fletcher. We saw them keep Carson Beck well protected. We saw every back get some sort of a breaking run in that ball game. And on defense, Ruben Bain lived in the backfield as if he was a part of Ohio State's running back committee, because that's how much he was in the face of Julian Sayin. And everyone on that front line for both sides of the ball for Miami did what they were supposed to do. I was also very impressed by Carson Beck. I thought he played his best game as a collegian, regardless of where he was at Georgia and or Miami. He managed his game rather well. He did a fantastic job of taking off when the situation called for. He had a crucial first down where he lowered his shoulder and got the yardage needed to move the sticks, and he didn't make the big mistake. Right. We thought he was going to make the big mistake. He didn't make the big mistake. He took what the defense gave him, and his legs was the difference in his ball game behind that very good offensive line.
Yeah, Carson Beck, most wins, 36 by an FBS quarterback in a 3-year span since Marcus Mariota in 2012 to 2014. Look, Carson Beck was really good in this game, good enough. Julian Sayin was not good enough. He was not good at all in this game, really. I mean, Beanie, we're watching this game. He looked overwhelmed for most of this game.
He was. And anytime I always say you got a young quarterback and they start looking at the rush instead of feeling the rush, you're in trouble. And all night long, he was looking at the rush. There were several plays in this football game to where one being in the red zone where he had a clear-cut touchdown, but because he's looking at Ruben Bain and him beating his offensive line and not looking downfield, he misses it. Then there's another situation in the second half on a 2nd and 6 where he misses his wide-open tight end on the outside because he's looking at the defenders in his face. This is something that he has to be much better at moving along in his career. You got to be able to feel the pressure. You can't stare down your offensive lineman. You have to expect those guys to do their job, but you have to get the ball out of your hands fast. He wasn't able to do that tonight all night long.
And I thought Ryan Day did a fantastic job of calming him down by running the football. The run game was there for Ohio State. They had some success running the football, Bo Jackson, C.J. Donaldson. But when it came time for Sayin to make a play, at times, he wasn't doing it, but thank God they do have a Jeremiah Smith, someone that went over 150 yards receiving. He felt like he was putting the onus on his back. I got to find a way to convert the first down, because you saw Donaldson show some effort. You saw Smith show some effort, but when Sand was showing that he was rattled, Miami just teed off on it. They kind of stayed the course. And it's like, hey, if we just wait this thing out, stop their run game, put them in an obvious passing situation, we know we can heat him up, and that was the biggest key. You talk about him missing that opportunity, the tight end that was out there in the right flat. That caused a sack. That turned it into 3rd and super long. That was a turning point of the ball game, because now they have to punt. Miami gets the ball back, and all she wrote, because that's what happened when you, or like you said, that when you're focusing on the rush and not trusting your protection, or not even using his legs. You would have thought he's not an athlete, but he can get out there and run. But he didn't tonight, because he was focused on what was going on in front of him.
And this was so many things that we looked at in the Big Ten championship game as well. And those 3rd and medium, those 3rd and short situations, particularly in the red zone, he had opportunities to take off and run the football and go get the first down. And he didn't do it. And we saw a quarterback tonight in Carson Beck use his legs at the most critical times to extend drives for his football team. That's something that you have to go back to the drawing board and implement in Julian Sand's mind, and saying, you know what, if it's 3 yards there for you to go get for us, go get that. Extend drives for us. Let's continue moving the football, move the chains along.
Yeah, the running game was disappointing, Emory. I mean, it was 153 to 45. And you saw Mark Fletcher Jr., who originally committed to Ohio State, flipped to Miami. He fumbled, but then Miami's defense forces a punt. They come back, and a touchdown from Mark Fletcher Jr. So you want to talk about the confidence right there. He gets his confidence back, and that was a turning point in the game, because they go up 7-0, and then boom. Couple plays later, Julian Sand throws a pick six to Keontae Scott. It's 14-0, just like that. And you're like, now you're chasing, and that was their largest deficit in 3 years.
And it showed that they can't play from behind. They're a team that if they get too far behind, they're going to play slow. They're going to just play catch up. And then when you got a team that's pressuring a young quarterback like they did tonight, it's even worse for you, because now you have no continuity to be able to develop drives and sustain drives, and you're just kind of throwing darts at the dartboard trying to see what sticks. And that's what happened with Ohio State tonight.
And it's funny, because when you look at Mark Fletcher, right, and how he ran the football, 17 to 90 or 19 for 90, it felt like he had over 100 yards away. He was toting that rock.
Yeah.
He was on a Terrell Davis 97 playoff run where he went from 584, 145 yards a game. He went off in the playoffs. That's what we saw tonight from Mark Fletcher. That's what we saw last week from Mark Fletcher against Texas A&M. He has been the biggest turning point for Miami's football team in these postseason playoffs, because how he's run the football. He closed out the game against Texas A&M. He set the table and set the tone here against Ohio State. And Carson Beck's legs, very impressive. Went to go get the yards over there. I just thought the offensive line and the run game for Miami made the difference, because we didn't see much from Malachi Tony tonight. It was going to have to be other guys outside of Tony, like we brought up in the pregame, and also the run game. Both of those things checked, and they won the game.
Miami was 7 for 14 on 3rd down. Ohio State was 3 of 10 on 3rd down. What did you think of Ryan Day? Took over the play calling duties. What would you grade him in this game? They lose. So this to me is an F. I'm not messing around here. This is, you failed. You lost. Well, you take back the play calling duties, and I don't know, maybe it was because you're hearing from a different voice all of a sudden. Right. You're hearing a different guy in your ear. I'm not sure what happened, but this did not look like the Ohio State team that we saw early in the year beating Michigan. This looked like a timid Buckeye team.
Yeah, they were certainly out of sync. And, you know, what grade do I give them? I mean, like you just said, you lose. So I don't know how I can give you a passing grade. But nonetheless, when you look at Ohio State and how they performed on the offense today, they were out of sync the entire night. The young quarterback could not get going, and they just couldn't find any rhythm in the way that they were calling plays. Now, there were times in this football game to where I thought, you know what, we should have ran the ball a little bit more and slowed it down in this earlier part of the game instead of the later part of the game where we started running, and I was able to develop some continuity and develop the drives. But nonetheless, it was an ugly performance on the offensive side, and the play calling did not help the young quarterback, because we all know if you're being rushed at an insane rate in which that what Mario Cristobal was throwing the blitzers at him, the first thing you want to do as a coach is say, you know what, I want to get the ball out of my quarterback's hands quick. There were so many times I'm sitting there saying, why is Julian Sand dropping back so far? Not just 3-step drops. We're talking 5, 6, 7 drops. And what are we seeing? We're seeing defensive ends pin their ears back and get right after him.
What really was the turning point for me, for Ryan Day, I thought he called a solid game in terms of running and passing. Saying he can't call saying not being afraid of pressure, right? That's something that you can't coach, right? That's all I'm saying. But it was 2:14 left in the ball game. It was 2nd and 9. And instead of taking a timeout, he let the clock go all the way down to the 2-minute warning, and now he was going to use his 3 timeouts on the back end. He never got the ball back, in terms of with time to go do something. Miami had scored a touchdown to ice the game. Had he called that timeout, you put the pressure then on Miami to convert that soon-to-be 2nd and 9 or 3rd and whatever, and then you let the 2-minute timeout come, and now you have more timeouts on the back end, so you give yourself a chance. This was what I was worried about in the pregame when we talked about what changes when you are a play caller and also a head coach. Do you lose sight of the situational football moments that a head coach usually has his thumbnail on, like, okay, let's take a time out here, and we'll be able to regroup, get these guys focused on what potentially could come. And they read it perfectly. Right. The play was there to be made defensively. The guy just missed the tackle, and that ultimately led to the touchdown to close out the ball game.
Ohio State had been off for 25 days. No excuses. You got to be ready when it's game time, and they did not look ready. And hats off to Miami. Like, I sat up here and I said Miami belonged in the college football playoff. They certainly belonged on this night as they improved to 6-0 against ranked opponents this season, taking down the defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes. And Carson Beck, with so much to play for, his final year of eligibility, looking ahead to the NFL, trying to make a statement here in this game, and he does. He leads them to victory. Didn't put up flashy numbers, but the guy wins. I mean, 15 wins against AP-ranked opponents since 2010. He's got 15 of them. That's tied for 3rd most all-time in the last 15 years. Carson Beck and Miami on to the Fiesta Bowl. Coming up, back out to the Cotton Bowl where the Hurricanes rock the Buckeyes on the final day of the year. We got a live report coming up. You're watching CBS Sports HQ. Keep it locked.